Hello? I'm not sure what happened. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, the meeting recording, it announces when the official meeting has officially started being recorded, and that happened when you were speaking. My apologies, Ben.
That's okay, thank you. Did everybody have a chance to review the minutes from the last meeting?
I did, and I have it in front of me to have another quick review. That's Peter Gray.
I had no changes suggested. Thank you.
Peter, any changes?
I have no corrections either.
It looks correct to me.
All right. Make a motion, please, to accept.
Motion to accept the minutes.
Second, go ahead.
Second, Commissioner Berquist.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Okay. Let's see first. Continuation of live virtual platform for pre-licenses and mandatory continuing education classes. So, Jill, they're looking for a renewal of this, or,
Yes,
okay.
yeah, just allowed to continue the way
Well,
we have.
When does it expire? The actually,
I don't know. I don't know when it expired.
okay. All right. I mean, have we had any complications or problems with the virtual platform?
No, not that I know of.
No complaints?
Nope.
So, any discussion regarding it? You know, I think under the circumstances, we really have not much of a choice with this Delta variant that's going on right now.
Mhm.
Do you all agree?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. So let's vote on it. Looking for a motion, please.
Motion to accept.
Second, and looking for a second.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ben, do we have a quorum?
Have, let me see, Morgan's here, right?
Yeah, but
I
she
don't know.
hasn't
Is she?
voted on anything.
You can call Morag in the background and just check in with her also. We do not have Sharon, and Ted had let us know prior to that he was unable to attend today. So we
I
do
know
have,
Ted wasn't, but Sharon is not.
no, Sharon Rinaldi is not in the meeting. So I will try to reach out to her in the background also if you like. But at first I'll reach out to Morag to see if she needs any assistance to be heard.
Yeah, we need, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I can vote in case, since we don't have enough.
I'll work on both of them right now.
Although we have 7, right? So 7 members now. So Jill, right, 7 members. So therefore,
Yeah,
for a quorum, we need 4.
4. You have 4.
So I have 4. Okay.
3. Well,
Thank you, Linda.
did you want to put a timeline on that? I don't know for that, for the continuing live virtual, because I don't know if there was one last time. Because I wasn't here then, so I don't know.
We probably should put a time frame on it. And my guess is it was a year.
I would, yeah. So what's the year start from start? Because I don't know when it started, so.
Yeah.
Do we know when it started? Can anyone remember?
I have no idea.
Amy, Linda?
I don't know when it started.
I thought I heard it started that they were allowing this prior to COVID. Was that? Did I hear that wrong? Does anybody recall?
I think it was approved as part of our last continuing ed cycle.
Hello?
Oh, there's more.
There she is.
That would be Marag now.
Mhm.
Yeah, for some reason, when I sign in, if I don't have a participant number, it automatically mutes me. So I've been here, but I haven't been able to talk, which is great for you folks, but terrible for me.
That's okay.
Okay.
We love to hear you.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
Okay.
I would suggest that we have the virtual, it come around again in 6 months, just because who knows what's going to happen with vaccinations, and if we wait a year, it may be too long. So, it takes moments to decide whether we want to continue or not. So it seems to me 6 months would be appropriate.
I would say let's put a date instead of 6 months, because the question is 6 months from what to what. So what does that mean? March? Would you say
Mike's
March?
question is, what's the harm if we go a year? Is there harm by pushing it out for a year?
Yeah, my guess is that people are gonna want this to continue even after COVID. My guess is people
Well, we-
find this helpful.
I'm
But is
hearing
that, once again, is that harmful to allow this,
Well-
eventually forever?
I would think that you would
Good
want,
point, Amy.
I mean, can I say something about that? Because I would think you would want to put some limits on the size of the classes. Some of these P&P classes are over 200 students.
I thought
So
there
we're
was
gonna-
a size limit of 50.
Hmm.
Well, I mean, I have not seen that, but I mean, some of them they're getting smaller because the timing and the amount of people getting their license. But through the summer and fall of last year, there were some large classes.
I mean, to me, the most important thing is that they actually get the material. I love the classes where they've got live tests, that bench and know that they're actually paying attention. And if they learn the material, to me, that's what I care about, that they pass the test and that
Wow.
if they've done the material, I'm good with it.
I think
It was my understanding that it was capped at like 50 individuals because that was the most an instructor could actually pay attention to.
okay, so was that something that was in writing? I'd love to see that.
I don't know.
I
if it's
don't
in
know. I have
Um,
no idea. That wasn't
have-
provided to us.
I have had attendees call in or complain that they feel the class was too big. And they, at the end of a chapter, they'll say, okay, raise your hand if you have a question. And then like lots of hands go up, but only 1 or 2 questions get answered and then they move on. So there is
Also
some
seeing it-
frustration
I've been
in
in-
some of the larger, but I've
I've been in
seen,
classes where there's so many questions that the poor instructor can't teach the material.
But could we incorporate that into the motion this time?
a
Well,
this
limit on
motion?
how many students or
Yes. Mhm.
because I thought there was something where if there was over so many students, they had to have a monitor. Somebody that was monitoring because it's hard to teach a class and also monitor the class.
Hmm.
Does anybody have access to what we actually approved last time so we can?
that's what I was gonna say. Can we look back at those minutes, or is there any way we can,
I'm gonna look it up right now.
first of all, who put this on here? Where did this come from, Jill? Who was asking for this? Who asked you to put this on here? The agenda?
Nobody asked me to put it on there. I think it was something that came through the department.
Well, I think we start working backwards. Then let's find out who from the department and ask them from the. There's got to be a reason there's got to be a time or whatever. We need
I
to
think
find out
that-
information.
Hold on.
Hello?
We're still here.
Okay, thank you.
Still here, Warren. We're looking up something at this time.
Now I understand Linda's point about 6 months, because then we can just say whatever we did before, we extend it.
Okay, so it says, live virtual courses may be taught at several locations at one time. any single location housing more than 6 students will be required to have a site monitor.
But it doesn't say anything regarding the size.
But there was no upper end cap on
No,
that.
6 or
Right.
fewer students will not be required to monitor. However, the school will be required to collect a picture ID tracking. Okay, Zoom. The course will be live virtual. No, there's no limit. There's no maximum number.
All right, well, I don't feel comfortable putting a limit on until we've talked to some instructors to see to get some feedback, to see what their thoughts would be.
Okay. Mhm.
So I don't want to just pick a number out of the air and then have schools upset because we've capped the number of people they can have if there is actually a way for them to manage it. So, I mean, maybe we just agree to extend it for a shorter number of months now, and then in the meantime, get some more information as far as, are these classes working? What do you want class sizes capped at? And then we can incorporate that the next time, if and when this continues.
Okay. You want to put this off then till we find out information?
No, I think you can continue allowing what they've been doing. I just think the next time we come around to it in 3 months or 6 months or whatever that number is, we can have talked to some people in the meantime, and then we say classes have to be capped at no more than, X number of people, and whatever else we need to come back with based on feedback we've gotten from instructors.
Mhm.
And
I'm
or
not sure the-
students. I mean, if students are feeling like they're not being heard in classes because there's hundreds of people and the instructor can't pay attention to them, that's also a problem.
Yeah, I think I would like to get more than the instructors, because I think the instructor's opinion could be self-serving. And I
Sure.
think the people who are taking the classes should definitely be surveyed to see how that's going. And
Okay.
maybe we could do, as commissioners,
problem is
we
who's
could
gonna
take
do
a
it.
class or two and
Yeah.
see what the situation is.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm happy to do like an ad hoc survey of some folks. There's a Facebook group I'm in that has a couple thousand agents in it, and I can ask people, have you taken any live virtual classes lately? How did those go? How big was the class? Did you find it you were getting questions answered and, you felt like you were learning, and just try to get some information that way too.
I think I would say, who's taken the principles and practices, because
Is that class, that's the class? Okay.
people are getting, yeah, because that's an interactive class in a lot of ways, because
Yep.
there is a lot of discussion. It's not
Okay.
just reading from the book.
Okay.
People have questions. And yeah, that's a
All
good
right.
idea.
Well,
can do that.
by the way, how's our passing and failures of the exams? Percentage wise.
I can get that for you. I haven't.
We used to get that ever so often. We haven't seen one for a long time. I'd be curious, especially this last year.
Well, let me make a note and then I'll get that.
Hey, Amy, what's the name of that Facebook page?
That would tell us a lot.
I think it's CT Real Estate Professionals. Hold on one second. CT Real Estate Professionals Network.
Okay, great.
And
Thanks.
that's not all encompassing, but it does have 5,300
right.
members, some of
Mhm.
which are agents, some of which are lenders and other people in the real estate sphere.
All right, so let's make a motion, and then we'll add 6 months, which would be what, May? That would bring us what, end of February, 1st of March, or 1st of February?
February
When
12th.
are our meetings going to be next year? Like, when would this come up in a cycle related to our meetings? So this is August, November we meet, February we meet, is that correct?
We meet 4 times yearly.
Because we meet every 3 months.
Correct. February, the first Wednesday May, August, and November. So it will be the same that will be held to for next year also,
Okay,
hopefully.
so
So
maybe
Mark-
run it till the end of February, and then we'll, at that February meeting, we can make an adjustment as to what continues. Does that sound reasonable?
Yes.
That'll give us a chance to check on, on the data.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so, good idea. So let's make a motion.
Well, Peter's the one that initiated the motion, isn't he?
Yeah, but this is not my motion. This is a
different.
different motion.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to extend what's currently in existence until February 28th, 2022, or there are 29 days in that February. February 28th,
Second.
2022.
Second.
Second,
All, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Oppose? Accepted. Okay. All right, we have Edward Lombardi Jr. requesting the commission to waive pre-license requirements. So this is not, we're not approving an application here. We're approving, requesting the pre-licensing requirement, right, Jill?
Yes. Yes, Mr. Lombardi,
Give us a little synopsis of this.
yeah, Mr. Lombardi reached out to me on or about July 9th, inquiring about waiving some pre-licensing requirements to take the broker's exam. He has submitted to the department.
I'm sorry, what was the time frame on that? The time,
He reached out to me July 9th.
July 9th, okay.
July 9th, so last month. And he supplied he gave us a timeline, but he also gave us some things that he thought would help. He has, he'd been licensed for 10 years. His license expired in, so he was previously licensed. His license expired in March 31st of 2013.
Wait a minute,
But
his
this
expiration was 2013.
13. He expired in 2013. He did take a 36-hour course. Yeah, Terry Joe has that up there. This license was also issued in June of 2002. That's when this license was issued. So
Wait a minute, so 2002 was a salesman's license?
no, that was his broker's.
Okay,
and I think his last teaching time was in 15.
Well, he actually
Most of the material you sent us was
Yeah,
dated
the
the 14
material-
and 15.
Yeah, what I sent you were a letter from Sacred Heart University, where he had taken the principles and practice course. And that, he said that was a 36-hour course.
I read
I
a
know most of
60-hour
the-
course that Mr. Lombardi taught a 60-hour course. Did I misread
Well,
that?
we're not
He's not
talking about
teaching
that
now.
yet, Peter. We're
Oh,
on,
I see.
we're
Okay.
going through the 3 things he sent that he wanted to have discussed. So he took a 36-hour principles and practices class. And I don't know when that was, because this looks like maybe
Most of the dates were back to the 2015.
this, yeah, well, this goes back as far as 87, and I don't know, but that's an affidavit to the course. It wasn't a certificate. And then he took real estate appraisal at Fairfield University. And this is supposed to represent real estate appraisal 1 and 2. it says income property appraisal, but he can speak to that. But this certificate covers real estate appraisal 1 and 2, from what Mr. Lombardi's told me. And then lastly,
I'm
gateway-
sorry, that's dated from 1990, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
And lastly was Gateway Real Estate Academy. In the Gateway Real Estate Academy, he taught the 60-hour P&P course there in the fall of 2005. So I would assume he's taught that class one time, just by this letter. So those are the things he wanted highlighted. He has an MBA in finance. So what he wants to do is he wants to waive the 60-hour P&P and just be able to go sit for the exam.
Now for continuing ed, I know for continuing ed, if you teach it, it's considered the same as taking the class because you've clearly been through the material. We don't have, it's interesting that you can teach a class never having taken the class. For example, when I did my broker pre-licensing, I was taught by someone who was a salesperson. So we don't have that, but the theory should still hold that if you can teach it, you've done enough of the research that you should know the material, right?
Depending on the time, how long ago it was.
We're talking 2005.
So that would mean that someone who taught or took a class in 2000, if someone took a class in 2014, a 60-hour class, would they be eligible today to sit for the exam? The 60-hour, but in 2000.
If they taught it or took it, is that what
If
you're
they
saying?
took it. So to me, I'm saying that teaching it is the same as taking it to me. I'm only talking about my opinion.
Well,
But what I'm asking is, if he took the course in 2014, would he be eligible
He
today?
taught the course in 2005. The paperwork
is-
is just from 2014, but he
Exactly.
taught in 2005.
Let me
Was
clarify
it
why
a
this
60-hour
says,
class in 2005? I thought it was a 36-hour class in 2005. Let's see. Ah, you're right. He taught it in 2005.
let me clarify one thing here, okay? This letter that's dated December 29th, 2014, that was a letter that Mr. Lombardi had drafted, he was back in 2014, he was trying to get his license.
So that's 7 years. I mean,
Right.
it's-
But what happened was he was talking with Kelly, he was talking with Ed McMahon. He had supplied some of this paperwork, this being one of them, saying that he wanted to he wanted to get his broker's license back then. And back then he was told, because he had taught the class, that they were going to waive the 60 hours and he could go ahead and sit for the exam, but he never did. So here he is back today asking the same thing. So this was a letter that was drafted from the director of the school stating that he had taught a class.
Can I
Now,
ask you-
I would say that there's a lot of people out teaching classes that never took the 60-hour. If I was an instructor today, I didn't take 60 hours, I took 30 hours.
2005, it was a 30-hour class. It was definitely not a 60-hour class that I know of in 2005.
Right, because that didn't happen till around around 14, right?
That's what I recall.
So I don't get that, but I mean,
It looks like a clerical error. One could very quickly assume that the real estate class is the same today as it was then, which it isn't. It's a different class. I know it's a different class because I remember when that change happened, and I remember there was a flood of people rushing to get 30 hours before it became 60 hours.
That's right.
yeah.
I guess I'm a little confused on it. If this was already approved, let's say between Kelly and Ms. McMahon, why is this back to us?
Well, because
We
it was
didn't- we weren't
approved,
involved before, but now all of a sudden we're back involved.
no, because how long would that approval hold? I mean, if somebody said back in 2015, yes, we're gonna waive this, go ahead and take the test, and then he never does, and now here it's 2021. It's 6 years later. So I think this needs to come before you, and you need to decide.
Mhm.
I mean, Mr. Lombardi is on he's on the call if you want to talk to him.
I'd like to know what Mr. Lombardi's been doing for these last, what is it, 7 years?
Well, he
I
can.
mean,
you
why
unmute
has this
him?
come up again? Why has this been set aside and now it's come up again? Mr. Lombardi, can you answer that for us?
Terry Joe, there we go. There he is.
Oh, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Good morning.
Morning.
First of all, I wanted to just clarify one thing. I took the principles and practices back when the 30-hour course when I first got the sales license, and the Sacred Heart and Fairfield University classes were both appraisal classes. If you look down on the, I don't have it in front of me, the I think it was the Sacred Heart class might have shown it was had both on the form for them to be able to fill out for principles and practices as well as for the appraisal class. So both those were for the appraisal. One was for appraisal one was for appraisal two. Now, addressing your concern about the change in the class and the laws. Obviously, I'm going to have to brush up and be able to study and learn and get up to date before I'm able to take an exam again. So, and the other thing that you didn't bring up was that I never took the broker 1 and 2 classes, which are a fairly new requirement. They were both the 2 15-hour classes. One is let me just get the law here. The 15-hour course in brokerage principles and practices. The other is a real estate legal compliance. That's also 15 hours. And that's part of the new requirement. You still able to hear me?
Yeah,
Excuse me?
yes.
Okay.
Mr. Lombardi, you didn't answer my question.
Oh, why you want to,
What's the lapse, or what have you been doing during the lapse?
I've had a couple of different positions. One was I worked doing accounting. I've done property management. I've worked with recently helping my nephews do sales for their roofing company.
Why did you give up your broker's license?
Originally, I was thinking about starting the class. I did receive approval for teaching the class. That's how I ended up getting the position with Gateway Community. And I found that I was working full time and that the it was starting to get costly. So I decided to drop it. But I also find that there's opportunities working with management companies that would like you to have at least a sales license.
But why did you drop your existing broker's license that you had
I
previously?
wasn't using it at that point very often, so I let it lapse.
Let me ask you something. When did you get your salesman's license? What year was that? 87?
I'm sorry, I'm having a little trouble hearing you.
When was your salesman's license? When did you get your salesman's license? What year?
I think that was around maybe 85.
How active were you back then?
Excuse me?
Were you working for a company? How active were you back then in 85?
It was part-time.
It was part-time. And then what year did you get your broker's license?
I got that, it was around 2001,
2001?
somewhere around there.
And now, did you have anybody, were you holding other licenses at that time?
Did I hold other licenses?
Other licenses?
Yes, I did.
You did. How many did you hold?
I had a sheet metal, I actually opened up a manufacturer. I purchased a manufacturing business.
Or I think he means, did you have any licensees working for you under your broker license?
Real estate, really, let's just focus on real estate. So
Oh,
how much-
again, I was having a little trouble hearing you. No, I didn't have anyone working under me, no.
So yeah, no other, okay. So then from 2001, when did it expire?
13.
I believe Jill said about March of 2013.
Correct. I think
And you were-
one of the questions was that gateway, the date on there was 2005, and we didn't have the 60-hour PMP in 2005.
I remember getting that letter, requesting that letter, and it had been a couple of years. Let's see. And unless that, it was definitely a 60-hour course. I don't remember the exact date. It was at, I taught it at Amity Regional High. The only explanation I can think of is that because that at that point, the law had changed. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been teaching a 60-hour class.
When did the law change?
I don't think so. I got licensed in 2007 and I only had to take a 30-hour class.
I want to say it was around 2014 when they,
Yeah. There was a time there, if you remember, that once they changed to 60 hours, you were able to add on 30 hours by going, that's when they were offering 30 hours. Then that stopped about a year later. Do you remember that? You could add an extra 30 hours?
I don't remember that they ever allowed that. I thought you always had to get the.
Yeah,
take
it's
the
60,
60.
but
I
for a
could be
short
wrong.
period of
I don't
time,
know.
they allowed, I forgot exactly where it was, but they allowed someone to go back if there was a 30-hour course, which they were offering, one school was, and then that shortly dropped.
Uh-huh.
When you had your broker's license, Mr. Lombardi, how many transactions did you do?
I didn't track it.
Well, give me
I
a
did mostly leasing. I was also a landlord. I did a lot of leases. And I sold maybe 2 houses with, to part of which I was part owner.
So are you planning on using the broker's license personally to involve yourself in purchasing?
Well, again, I know that there's no issue with that as long as I disclose that I am a broker or licensed real estate agent, because they're supposed to, I'm supposed to disclose that as far as, ethics. And so that's a possibility.
Yeah, I'm not challenging the legality of doing so. I'm just asking your
I know.
purpose in getting a broker's license.
Well, again, I know that there is possibilities, again, in either property management. I see a lot of rental opportunities where people are looking for licensed individuals to do leasing for companies.
Can I have clarity, Jill? Are we looking at a request for broker or a salesperson?
Well, initially, Mr.
was for-
Lombardi asked for a broker's license, and then he said he might do a sales license. So I could put
Well-
that question up to Mr. Lombardi.
Yeah, I was, again, I think that I'm still going to have to take the 30-hour broker courses, the 15 hours, in order to get this license anyway. So I'm still going to be taking, as far as I know, and to get the broker's license, I think I should be able to take at least a sales license right away. But I think in order to take the broker's license, if I'm not mistaken, I'm going to have to take the 2 15-hour broker courses. So I'm going to have to take those two courses. Basically, what I'm looking for is trying to waive the 60-hour requirement, since I taught the course. I also taught I did teach the 30-hour class on a rotating basis, but I don't have any documentation for that. That was with Gold Coast Realty. There was a planned, one of the instructors was going to have an operation, and they asked me to fill in. So he trained me, and I picked up the class and went through maybe a cycle, and then before he came back. So I think I'm still going to have to take the class for the brokerage if I'm going to do that, and get up to speed on some of the current laws.
Well, it's,
Quick question on procedure. Apparently, you no longer have a salesperson's license. Is that correct?
Correct.
Is there any requirement that there be a current salesperson's license in order to sit for the broker, or can it be, having had it at one time? That's not for you, Mr. Lombard, that's for staff.
Oh, okay.
The prerequisite says that you have a license and you've been active for the last five years, I believe, and it's changing in January, but you had to have 20 transactions, the required courses.
Can I clarify that? Hello?
yes.
Yes, who's offering to clarify?
Sorry. The law, as far as the law, it simply states, it's section, again, if you want to reference it, it's section 20-314, and it's in part D. And it says, has been actively engaged for at least 2 years as a licensed real estate salesperson under the supervision of a licensed real estate broker.
You
Now,
haven't been, your license is expired.
yes, it doesn't mention any time frame. Now, if I go down to what Jill was talking about in part 2, it says the
No,
commission.
it says you have an
commissioner-
active license. You don't have an active license.
It just says, it says has been. It doesn't say during the past 2 years at all. What you're referring to where it says the past 2 year or past 5 years says the commission is only pertains to waiving the 2 elective courses to take the broker's license. That is part 2. It says the commission or the commissioner of consumer protection shall waive the elective courses under subparagraph AV, which is the 2 elective courses, not the broker's courses, 2 additional elective courses of subdivision 1 in this subsection, if the applicant has successfully completed at least 20 real estate transactions within 5 years immediately preceding the date of the application. So in other words, that only pertains to if for someone who wants to waive the elective courses. That is not a requirement for the broker's license. That's only if you wanted to waive something, those 2 courses to obtain the broker's license.
Under that same statute, it says has been actively engaged for at least 2 years as a licensed real estate salesperson under the supervision of a real estate broker in the state.
Where does it reference that?
That's
I just pulled
that's
this off
section-
I just pulled this off the state website.
Can I just clarify, Paulette here?
Yeah,
So I agree that there isn't like a cap that says you have to be engaged actively, let's say in the past 5 years, 2 years. As long as the 2 years have been completed as a salesperson, he's fine. He doesn't have to go back and get a salesperson's license and do that for 2 years in order to get his broker's license. He's already completed the 2 years. That's my understanding. Now, with respect to what some of the prerequisites for the broker, which the 15 hours that he was talking about, those are things that he needs to complete.
We also tell people they have to complete the 60 hours if they took a 30-hour course.
well, that's what I was asking to waive. Not waive, but
That's-
substitute teaching the class, the 60-hour class.
That's the problem I'm seeing is the
I mean, basic-
consistency. Yeah, that
I mean-
we do ask people who've taken the 30 to go back and take the 60.
Well, if I taught the 60, and again, the bottom line is, will I be knowledgeable enough to act as a broker after I take the broker's classes and do my studying? And given my background, I think that teaching is, you have to spend a lot more time than even the 60 hours to teach the class. I spent a lot of effort doing handouts and prep work and reading just to prepare to teach this class. I spent well over an additional 60 hours, I'd say, preparing handouts and so forth. And I think that's why that they had waived they accepted the teaching the class in lieu of retaking it.
I don't know. I mean, I think some of our feelings I can sense is that a lot has changed. It's been, your license expired 7 years ago. now. A lot of things have changed, including back in 2005 when you taught this course. So, and plus, I mean, how active were you? You never supervised any agents.
Was I supervising? No,
Yes.
but again, I intend to take those 30 hours for the brokers classes.
As a salesperson, I can tell you there is a huge difference between taking classes or being in the classroom and actively practicing real estate. It's almost night and day. So that's a big concern for me.
I do have a question. So we approved this motion 6 years ago. How long is an approval good for? Do we have a number on that?
No, I didn't say you approved it. I said it was done by internal. It was,
Okay.
it
So how
never,
long is
I
an
don't think he
internal
ever came
approval good?
before you. And I think
How
the
long
big
is an
question
approval
is
good for?
Gateway Academy and the date of 2005. I think that's the,
How long is how long is the approval good for that Mr. Lombardi has received from the DCP?
it was a letter from the previous examiner to him saying that I mean, we can bring up that email if you want to see it.
That would help me a lot.
Yeah,
Just
Terry
'cause
Jo,
what
can
I'm
you bring
struggling
up
with is
that-
if it was approved, I don't know how long the approval.
We all received
is
the
good.
email in our
Oh,
packet.
we did?
That should be in our package.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? Then I have
So-
seen it. Yeah. So I don't, I'm still struggling with the same question. Maybe that's a question for Paulette. I don't know how long an approval should remain good for. I can't imagine, no offer that I know of is good forever, but an offer is good for a time period.
Well, this was back in March of 2015.
I mean, Paulette, is that something that we would look to you to figure out how long an offer remains valid for?
I would think that at the time, the understanding would be that he would have applied or done what he was supposed to do at the time to get his broker's license. The fact that he didn't do that and the law has probably changed and there's other requirements that it's appropriate that it comes before the board again for him to seek the waiver that he's seeking. I wouldn't
Yeah,
go
I
back
mean,
to that letter.
The timing of the email with Kelly is right around the time frame where his broker's license would have been expired for 2 years. So he was coming up on a renewal period where he essentially had to, renew his license, so he didn't have to retake everything again, I believe.
That is part of it, because there is a in an email to Kelly, he says, I'm considering taking the broker's exam again. I have kept up with continuing ed for a while, even after I let the license lapse, but I found it was $900 more to pay for the licensing fees than to just basically take the test. So
It was a choice.
Yeah. I mean, my issue with this is that the teaching of the PNP class was in 2005, which was 16 years ago. The license expired, I don't know, 9 years ago, 8 years ago.
8 years ago.
And there has been like nothing in real estate related since then. And I'm having a hard time just waiving classes.
Yeah, what I'm challenged with is I know the letter says it's a 60-hour class, but I also know that I don't believe a 60-hour class was available. I believe that might be a clerical error. I'm really having a very hard time. I mean, I was there and I don't believe that 60-hour classes were taught at that time.
I looked up the statute and it looks like that took effect in 2014, the
That's what I
60-hour
recall.
requirement.
I mean, I really recall that quite well because I was there.
And you're not senile yet, right?
I hope not.
I can't remember any courses, PNP courses, being how long? I've been 46 years in the business. I don't remember any course of 60 hours of principal way back. It was all 30. Does anybody remember a
No.
60-hour course?
No, that was around
Jill,
2000.
you've been around, you were licensed a long time.
No, that was around 2014, the 60 hours came in.
Can I chime in? Sorry to interrupt. I've with a real estate school, the Association of Realtors. I joined in 2004, September of 2004, and they were just making the transition from 30 hours to 60 hours. And I know it was several years later that anybody who wanted to get their sales license again, if they had taken 30 hours, the Real Estate Commission was requiring them to do a full 60 instead of just an additional 30. And that came later on down the road.
That may explain the 2005.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay, looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to deny the waiver.
Second,
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? It's been denied.
All right, well, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, thank you.
All right, so at this point, I would have to take the 60-hour P&P.
That's correct.
Now,
You'd have to take the 60-hour P&P and then the two broker
the two broker
15-hour
classes.
courses, which equal 30.
Okay, then I would be, then I'd be able to take the broker's exam again.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, could I get a letter to that effect?
I mean, I don't think you need a letter because that's just
Well,
what's
no,
required.
because, yeah, but they won't accept in order to apply through to the what do you call it, the exam, I'm supposed to
Right.
have some documentation.
Well, you're going to get the documentation when you complete the courses.
What about for the past? Okay, if I show them a copy of my old broker's license or a printout from the state website, that would show that I've met the rest of the requirements. I'm just
Well,
wondering what documentation I would need to present to the people who are currently giving the exam.
I think this discussion should take place with the staff at a later time.
Okay.
I'm not sure the commission should be involved right now. You can,
All right.
phone call.
Why don't you contact Jill at a later time?
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay, she'll direct you to the right procedure.
All right, and Jill, thank you again for your assistance.
You're welcome.
Okay, bye.
Have a good day.
You too.
Okay, we have regulation updates. And as you know, January 1st, 2022, there's going to be some changes.
Hey, Mr. Chairperson, we have our legislative liaison, Leslie O'Brien, who's on our meeting, and Leslie will be presenting on this portion, just to let you know, to give you a heads up about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Leslie. How are you?
So
You're
I'm
on.
on. I didn't like prepare a presentation. I'm sorry. We've been, as you probably have seen in the news, DCP's been buried with lots of things since the legislative session ended. with the recreational cannabis legislation, along with the expansion in gaming. So it's been a little bit crazy for us. With regard to things that happened during the legislative session impacting real estate, I think you're all aware of the fact that Public Act 21-167 was signed into law by the governor. And so, and it has, there are some clarifications in terms of minimum experience for real estate brokers, along with the teams, some clarification and some structure around the teams issue, which we have all discussed in the past. And so I don't know if people have had a chance to review that information. We certainly, I can tell you that we've worked, with you all in the past on the teams issue, and we, this legislation was proposed by the Connecticut Association of Realtors. We gave them a lot of input and feedback so that the language that was proposed was something that we could implement. I know they're working on FAQs. They've sent us drafts of FAQs that Julianne has actually made some changes to, and those will be, I think, and I can, let Jim, I know Jim Heckman's here as well, speak to that if you'd like. But that's what happened this session. As you all know, we worked on draft regulations to try to address the teams issue before, and we had submitted those to OPM in the governor's office. They hadn't moved, so we're pulling those draft regulations back to amend them now that we have this public act. So
does the Public Act now require us to draw regulations, which would mean it would go before regs review?
yes.
Okay. Did they include in the new legislation any increase in the fines that we can establish?
Well, it creates as you know, there was no statutory framework for teams at all, and technically advertising for teams shouldn't have been happening and shouldn't happen until this law takes effect. There are fines in this law as a result of the framework that's been created.
Well, I'm talking about the existing law as it related to fining brokers or salespeople. The cap on that was unrealistic under today's financial situation. We've talked about raising it for years. That's the one I'm talking about. Could you send us a copy of this legislation?
Yeah, absolutely. I will send it. I think Jill, okay. I will send it, and it will be sent. So yes, but with regard to, I just want to say something about fines. So some of the challenges we have as a department are not with the amount of the fine. It's about the enforcement of the law. And so no matter how high you make the fine, we need the staffing resources to do the enforcement work. And so on our end, our challenges and what we advocate for is to ensure that the laws that are written are laws that we have the staffing resources to enforce. And that's really the focus of the department in our position. So there have been other issues like the issue of leasing agents, where simply increasing the fine is not going to address the challenge we have with enforcement of the law. You can increase the fine to $1 million and it won't matter because we don't have the resources to enforce when there's a massive amount of people in violation of the law. So I just want to talk, just mention that when you speak about increasing fines. It's really, from our perspective, more about making sure we have the resources to enforce the existing laws, because the fines don't always create a disincentive when it comes to, the compliance with.
I can agree with you in terms of staffing, and I think that's something that the commissioner has to fight for, is additional staffing so they can have enforcement. But I also believe that knowing there is a higher penalty is in some fashion a deterrent, and that perhaps people will be a little bit more on their toes. And the cases that do come before us, I would like the flexibility to have a higher fine.
That's something we can continue to discuss moving forward, but I think, we can agree to disagree on that right now. There are, we have been fighting to try to get more staff, but, that's not something we have control over. And that's first of all. And secondly, we have a lot of instances in other areas that we regulate where the fine amounts are higher or there isn't a cap. And we find that, in fact, that doesn't work. We end up with a lot of outstanding fines sitting on the books because they end up being so outrageously high, and they're just not something that has been collected. And we've seen that over and over again in other areas where we regulate. So there has to be a balance.
Yeah, and you're defeating your own argument by saying that there are higher fines in other areas.
I'm not defeating my argument because I'm saying that they haven't been collected. It hasn't made a difference. It hasn't created any kind of disincentive for people who want to violate the law, who violate the law. So I'm not defeating my own argument, but I will send Terry Jo the public act so that she can send it around to all of you.
All right.
I have a question about the fees that were involved. So when I was on the working groups within the commission and DCP, just talking about teams over the past couple of years, we never had any discussions of fees at that point. So when it came out, I've had a number of people reach out to me and say, well, now teams are being penalized and they have to pay this $500 fee or whatever it is at some point. Where did the annual fee, and then it gets reduced to like $350 after the first year. Where did the fee come from and what's the justification of that fee? Because I'm getting a lot of feedback that I don't want to pay this fee. The state's just taxing us more and blah, blah, blah.
I have to go back and look. I don't think that that's the fee amount.
It's like 500. Hold on, I can bring it up.
It's 565.
Yeah, so they
It's
start at the first year and then they drop it to like 325 or something for every year after.
375.
Yeah,
on
Leslie,
renewals.
do you want me to answer it?
Yeah, please do, because
part of the requirements of the department is any bill that involves the department has to break even. Like there was virtually no chance this legislation would pass if we couldn't show that it broke even. So the department looked at, and so that
I said it was to cover staffing costs to like manage the new overhead related to this.
Right, but it's not just overhead, it's also enforcement. So it's the whole computer registration process and its enforcement.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, on the floor of the House, they said that this, part of the intent was that this bill would actually pay for itself over time after a few years. So that's the answer.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Sorry, I don't have it in front of me, and
that's fine.
I didn't want to agree that the number was a certain number without looking at the public act, which is not in front of me because I rushed to this meeting from another meeting. Sorry about that.
We had talked a lot regarding advertising on it. Is this going to be done by regulation?
Well, the statute has, yes, we will have to through regulation sort of put more guardrails on what the public act says, but yes.
When does that happen? What is the timing of that?
Again, what we are doing right now, as you know, we have worked with you all prior to the passage of this law on regulations to try to put some kind of framework around this since, there was nothing. We're pulling those back and amending them based on this public act. So we will share that with you all before we send it forward. Again, timeline wise,
I know. Yeah.
no, exactly how long it will take. It depends on how long, like, for example, we submitted to OPM in the office what we had all agreed upon last year, and it hasn't moved. So timeline, it depends on how quickly things move through the process, through OPM, through the governor's office, through the attorney general's office when they have to review for legal sufficiency. Then there's a 30-day public comment period. So, you know, I think, you know, now that we have there's no issue in terms of sort of the ability legally to write regs, since the new law now allows us to do so. You know, we will be pushing to try to move this quickly through OPM and the governor's office. And also, you know, I don't think we'll have a challenge, you know, with that 30-day period with a legal sufficiency with the AG's office. So, but it will probably, you know, I would say it will be at least 6 months, and it could be a little longer, depending
So
on things get.
just to clarify, that's regarding marketing and advertising related to Teams. Is that what we're talking about?
Yes, it's
Okay, so how does that work with the January 1 implementation deadline?
the effective date of the law is January 1st, but the law also requires for us to pass regulations. So there will be there will be sort of a between the effective date and when the regs take effect.
So when agents are asking me, I need to order new signs, when can I do this? What's the guidance we provide them?
Well, I don't know, Jim, if you are working, if there's anything in the FAQs about this, but because I don't recall seeing anything in the FAQs about this, but in any event, the guidance would be, as soon as I believe it would be safer to wait until the regulations take effect before anyone does anything.
Yeah, okay.
So that there's no worry that something has been done that contradicts the regs.
You can see right now, you're going to have a lot of questions regarding prominent location of the, it says must include the name of the contact information of the real estate broker, which must be included at a prominent location. What does that mean? You know, we're going to define the size and
the rate will help to add more clarity to what the underlying statute now says. But also, I know that the association, and I don't want to speak for Jim or Cindy, they're here, they speak to this as well, but they're also getting a lot of questions and working on FAQs that we're working with them on. So hopefully, as the questions, you know, as the sort of more frequently asked questions occur, that they'll be added to the FAQ.
We sent one set of 25 questions over that we worked on with the agency, and then those were approved by DCP. And then we have a second set that we sent over this week that we're waiting to get back, and we'll share those with the membership when we know. I don't remember if this exact question was on there though, Cindy, do you recall?
Yeah, well, there's, as Amy said, there's questions like, what, you know, can I use my team logo? You know, what is meant by this? I mean, what we've said to people is you can't have a team now. So it's not like something on January 1st has made what they're doing right now okay.
Right.
You know, so that's part of the difficulty. People think that there's something new that's going to permit what they currently have up to be okay or not okay now. And technically anything they have up right now is not okay. So I think that's where the confusion is people thinking that there's something that's changing a law as opposed to something that's starting to happen. So what we've consistently been saying, there are going to be regs. We don't know when it'll be. It has to go through the process. But for right now, there's nothing lawful about the concept of teams until January 1st. You know, most people aren't pulling their team advertising because of it. But I mean, that might have been a safer thing to do for some of them. But it's difficult because, I mean, obviously, Leslie can't make the state do regs faster. And you all signed off on regs. The regs you signed off on included a K that said teams can't legally exist. So we had to pull those. We wanted those pulled back so that teams could be lawful effective January 1st. We didn't want something to pass saying they aren't lawful and then January 1st arrive and have it be lawful. But the timeline is going to be what it is. I think it'd be helpful if we knew what we wanted it to be, and then we could request that as part of it, such as, I mean, one of the big questions is about a team logo. You know, can you use a logo in pictures and all of that, but that applies to agents who are using logos too. So a lot of the teams questions we get actually apply to agents as well. and how agents are going to be advertised in the future. Because I think the advertising regs, correct me if I'm wrong, that you all approved earlier was not just about teams, it was about agent advertising as well. So it's a much bigger issue that's going to affect agents, not just teams, when you do the regs.
Is there a member or more of the commission that's involved in this, so we see things earlier rather than later, so we know, so we're not just going to get handled, oh, here's the final work product, what do you think of this?
Well, the associations has offered to work with Leslie and Julianne on creating those regs. So hopefully we can build something that everyone can work
But
with.
Are there any commissioners in that group as well, is what I'm asking.
That's not my call.
Yeah, the regs that went forward were all of you, I believe. We were invited to be a part of it, but it was Adorn and all of you. So I think if you look at what regs are being pulled back right now, that may already have the answers if you still agree with what you had created over that 3-year period.
Okay.
Yeah, because that was not, again, there's some someone, and I think Inman made it up. Someone reported that DCP didn't know anything about the work group. And it's like, well, all the commissioner, most of you served on that work group.
Yeah, I said
so-
the thing I didn't know about was the fee. That was my first.
Oh, no, this was
message from
something that was
CTR
reported in Inman. We had sent out saying that there had been a work group at DCP, and then something came out in a publication that said DCP knew nothing about it. Which was wrong. Yeah.
Right. I think the question is right. So 2 things. One, right, Cindy, to your point, we won't be submitting anything until first of all, we're working with the association, but then also we won't be submitting anything until the commission reviews as well. So
thank you.
You don't have to worry about that. So that's first. Second, right, I think there's just confusion about what we call things, that's all. So I think there's just, there was sort of I think at one point a description as if something was some kind of official, appointed group, which didn't exist, but there was a group of people, we were all working together, which is definitely the case. And in terms of, again, I apologize on the fee end when you asked that question. Thank you so much, Cindy, for stepping up and Jim and answering. But again, that number was backed into to make sure that the revenue that is generated would cover the cost of doing this, because we can't do anything in the state without justifying that there's a way to pay for it. So that's where we are. It's also why, again, when we talk about enforcement issues, we're trying to figure out ways to get more staff here to deal with our challenges. So anyway, I think probably a lot of the questions that people will have moving forward can be circulated to the association, to us. And I really appreciate the help of the association on both the FAQ piece, because we are just buried here right now based on all of the things that happened during this legislative session. And we will be working with everybody on the changes in the regs based on the new public act.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add one more point about the FAQ. We're having Julianne review, edit, and sign off. And when our legal hotline gets questions, or when we get questions, all we do is copy and paste from the FAQ. And part of the problem is we have people out there teaching each other incorrectly once again, where people are trying to interpret what it means instead of just letting us send out the verbatim FAQ that the department attorneys have agreed, is the correct answer to the question. So that's why a lot of times we're saying either A, you have to wait for the regs, or we're copying and pasting, or give us your questions and then we will get DCP attorney sign off, because ultimately what your DCP attorneys decide is the answer, not everyone teaching each other wrong information again. But we had someone post this TikTok video, not we.
I was going to bring that up.
Yeah, we have someone who's like, here's a loophole that I found. She just made it up. I mean, you can't just make up answers based on what you think something means. And that's part of our frustration, is people trying to learn from each other instead of just waiting for the official answer to come.
Yeah, so my question was about that, because I was a little alarmed when I saw that, because she brought up the fact that if you're a team leader and you essentially have your broker's license, you can switch your broker's license to an entity license, I think, an entity as an LLC. And then that LLC can work under another broker, and then you wouldn't have to change your team name or anything like that. And that I know we had talked about entity licenses when we were having our working group sessions. And that loophole clearly was not, we weren't trying to allow that. We were saying, we don't want this allowed. And now she thinks she's found a workaround, and she's advertising that she's found a workaround and people should do this. But, consult an attorney and a tax accountant. And I said, well, that wasn't the intention of the legislation, I don't believe, and I will check at this meeting today. But, if that's the case, then I guess that's a loophole that needs to be closed next year. I mean,
So Amy, that's one of the questions in the FAQ.
Okay.
I think, and I'll wait till the FAQ comes out, but the answer is always who took the listing agreement. If the listing
Right.
agreement is Cindy Butts Real Estate, just because you have an entity called Amy Berquist Real Estate, you're not advertising your other company that you've separately established. You're a salesperson working under Cindy Butts, advertising Cindy Butts Real Estate.
Yeah.
So that's one of the questions we have in the FAQ. I personally don't believe it's a loophole, but we'll see what the official answer is and get it out.
Thank you.
But I mean, that's part of the problem. Someone's just making up, a
Yeah.
scenario without checking. And to say, check with your accountant, an accountant doesn't know what the real estate business entity laws are. The DCP
Right.
attorneys will tell them what that is.
Yeah, and I was alarmed. It's, it was a 60-second TikTok video, and she seemed that she had this all figured out. And I'm like, this isn't what, I mean, because people are going to follow that advice because it seems like an easy way to have a workaround, but it's not legally correct.
I would just,
Thank you.
say if there is anything like that out there, and I hate to add to Paulette's list of things to do, but a complaint should be filed that goes through the process, and then, people can be then notified when what they're what they're proposing is in violation of law. So somebody should, if there's something out there that's inaccurate, it should be sent to us.
I also saw that, and I am gonna reach out to the agent.
Okay.
Just thought.
Frankly, she told me she talked to the past real estate examiner, who I presume to be Kelly, and you said it was allowable. And I was like, let me check at my meeting on Wednesday because
No,
I didn't agree with that.
Amy, I have an email from her asking me and saying that she spoke to others, and I haven't answered her yet because I wanted to go to this meeting first.
Okay, thank you.
I have not responded to that email. I did not say it was okay.
Yeah, that's what I figured that.
Because I mean, I don't think we agreed that just because somebody's a broker working under another broker, that they could go and form a legal entity and then advertise that legal entity under that broker. That gets confusing. That's confusing.
Well, it's two separate companies.
It's two separate companies, but that's what they're doing. And I probably have a handful of emails from those companies, and they want all their teams now to go form legal entities and work that way. And frankly, I think that
Well, it should be, it'll be in the next FAQ.
Okay, I was going to say, so the
We'll
CTR
get-
FAQ, if that could be explicitly mentioned, because we're going to have all these people that are trying to do this.
Right, we're aware of it, and we're just working on it.
Thank you, we
and
appreciate
they're
it.
also talking about all this money it's going to cost them to rebrand, but they're rebranding something that never should have been. And I don't know if they should rush out and do that right now for January 1 if things are going to change.
For somebody who wasn't involved in the team evolution here, where do I find the FAQs?
I can send it to you, Linda, or I can send it to, what I'll do is I'll send it to Jill to send out to all the commissioners.
That would be
And,
great.
and I'll send every version and ask Jill to do that with every version of it.
That would
And
be
you should have gotten an email from CTR it was sent last week on,
It was called Legal Alert, I think on the 26th.
Oh,
Your
okay.
alert.
yeah, so you should have gotten a CTR alert. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
last Monday.
On there too. Okay.
Right.
But if you could do that, Cindy, also, that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
If it's not too much more work to pile on you.
No, I mean, the more people that know the correct answers, the better.
That's the point. I think,
But
yes.
people, yeah, and people misquote Jim and Leslie all the time, I'm sure. I'm sure that they're completely used to being misquoted and that's what they said. So Amy and Jill, I mean, we're used to it all the time with our legal hotline.
Thank
It's
you.
I sort of,
People hear what they want to hear when they don't get the answer they want.
exactly.
Right.
although this may sound a little creepy, I kind of wish I recorded everything I said to people just so that when I am misquoted, which happens quite often, I could just play it back because it happens with everything, like
Everything, right.
I appreciate that, Cindy. sending
Start
out to
making
all
some
of us.
TikTok videos, Leslie, then you'll be all set.
that's what I should do. I should live
Yeah,
by.
people will watch those.
Right. My 15-year-old can show me how to do that.
Any other questions? I'm sure we're gonna have a lot as we move ahead here.
Yes, and I apologize. Just like I said, this has been a really crazy time for the department. So we really appreciate your patience and really appreciate all the work that we've been able to do together and want to continue to do so. This has been a really, I've been here for 5 years and it's never been quite like this. So.
Morag, did you have a question? I saw your hand up.
No.
No, okay.
I just want to make one comment about Leslie. We have the luxury of only doing real estate here, so it's easy for us to know it's just real estate. One of the days we met with Leslie and Julianne, they were doing dating services and bounce houses. And it was like, really? Like you're even doing dating services and bounce houses? Like we may think they're only doing marijuana and gambling and appraisal and real estate, but it's like liquor, but it's all this other stuff too. So I'm just glad I just do real estate because it's easier to keep track of one thing.
Thanks, Cindy. Yes, I would like to just focus on real estate. That would be awesome. All right, well, if anyone, please don't hesitate to, send me an email or give me a call if you have any other questions. We, again, thanks for everything. And, we're here, so.
Hopefully some of these regulations are going to clear up a lot of these questions that we have now. I think this is what we need. Definitely.
Great. Excellent. Thank you. I'm going to go now, but you will be hearing from me soon. And Terry Jo, I will be sending you the public app link right now.
Thank you, Leslie. I appreciate it.
Take care.
Take care.
Okay. Anything else that we have? Any old business you want to bring up? Okay. All right. Then we will adjourn this meeting. I think our next meeting is, what do we say? October?
Our next meeting is
November.
November 3rd, Wednesday, November 3rd at 10 a.m.
When is it? Wednesday?
Wednesday, November 3rd.
Okay. Excellent. Okay. Thank you all. Thank